Who is Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder? For those unfamiliar, in a realm once dominated by immortal dragons, the emergence of fire marked the beginning of disparity, life and death, heat and cold, and light and dark. From this conflagration, 4 Lord Souls were born, endowing their bearers with immense power. Among these bearers was Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, who, alongside 2 other wielders of the Lord Souls, vanquished the dragons and initiated a prosperous age of fire. The possessor of the 4th Lord Soul, known as the Dark Soul, distributed his power among his people, who came to be known as humans. However, like all things, Gwyn's age of fire was not destined to last. Eventually, the first flame would dwindle, giving way to darkness and heralding an age of dark, an age of man. Gwyn, fearing mankind, cursed them with a ring of fire, the dark sign, intended to contain their dark soul, which grew stronger as the first flame waned. Desiring to preserve his age of fire, Gwyn sacrificed himself to rekindle the first flame, thus prolonging the age of fire, albeit temporarily, as the flame was bound to fade again. I believe Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, was driven not merely by fear, but by a profound sense of selflessness. When considering actions motivated by fear, we commonly encounter 2 interpretations: acts born of cowardice and acts spurred by desperation. Setting aside the usual connotation of these terms for a moment, let's examine what distinguishes the 2. A man forsaking his cause due to fear of potential repercussions is deemed a coward. Conversely, a man willing to do anything to save his child driven by fear of inaction is considered desperate. Admittedly, I've simplified these categories, but I lied, and that will only happen once more. There's a third, more complex depiction: cowardice desperation. This occurs when, out of fear, someone does a selfless action for a selfish reason. A nuanced behavior we'll revisit later. The distinction between cowardice and desperation can be succinctly described. Cowardice arises from actions taken out of fear for oneself, whereas desperation stems from actions taken out of fear for others or something beyond oneself. The delineation highlights the contrast between selfish and selfless interactions with fear. Understanding fear as a state, an emotion that acts as a catalyst within an individual, is crucial. Fear in a selfless person leads to acts of desperation, while in a selfish person, it results in cowardice. Gwyn, the Lord of Cinders, is often said to have committed the original sin by prolonging the life of the first flame. Why would he do this? Those familiar with Gwyn's story generally agree that he feared the unknown, yet many portray him as a selfish entity, clinging to the age of fire he both established and governed. He branded humanity with the dark sign and disrupted the natural cycle by kindling the first flame. I propose viewing Gwyn through his man with such the gift of empathy. Now, when I ask you to empathize, I truly desire that you attempt to resonate with what will be said. Consider Gwyn's era of prosperity for his people, a hallmark of responsible rulership. His knight's loyalty, which cannot stem from selfish acts against those from whom one seeks allegiance, and his familial sacrifices. However, imperfect a father he may have been, suggests a capacity for love. If Gwyn were truly selfish, driven by fear of the dark, would he not have exploited another Lord Soul Wielder before resulting to sacrificing himself? Would he not have sought to amass more power to fend off the unknown, rather than relinquishing his? One might speculate about alternative solutions to the predicament faced by Gwyn. Had there been other options and he refused, would you still consider him selfish? As humans whom Gwyn's actions directly affected, are we justified in being the judges of his decisions? If the roles were reversed, might we not have acted similarly in an attempt to protect what we hold dear? Let's ponder 2 questions. First, do you consider yourself a good person? Reflect on this before answering. Next, why would you choose to help someone? This inquiry segues into a revelation. My assertion of Gwyn's cowardice or desperation is, in fact, a diversion. Now time for me to admit my second lie. This narrative isn't about Gwyn, it's about you, the viewer. Many of us hold the belief that we are fundamentally good individuals, leading to a mixture of affirmative and negative responses when we ponder our own moral standing. My attention, however, is drawn towards those who confidently answer yes to their inherent goodness, particularly in the context of aiding others. If your rationale for helping someone aligns with because people sometimes need help, or focuses on the needs of others, you embody a commendable mindset. Yet for those who justify their actions by asserting, "I am a good person," whether this declaration is made in the moment or as a reflection on past deeds, a deeper conversation is warranted. This perspective is not inherently flawed. Nevertheless, it often emerges from a desire to affirm one's goodness to others, a notion that, while agreeable, may not always resonate as genuine. In our current era, marked by pervasive loneliness, the quest to alleviate this feeling propels us towards various actions, categorized by desperation, cowardice, and what I've termed cowardice desperation. Among these actions are the sacrifices of financial resources and opportunities chosen in the pursuit of escaping loneliness. This might manifest as entering a doomed relationship or reverting to a detrimental one, driven by the belief that facing the unknown alone is more daunting than enduring an unhealthy partnership. Another manifestation, which may oscillate between desperation and cowardice depending on the context, yet predominantly aligns with cowardice, is the phenomenon of the energy vampire. This term describes individuals who forsake their own agency in solving problems, instead leeching on the emotional support and attention of others to avoid feeling isolated or accountable. Such behavior, characterized by exploiting the lack of personal initiative as a means to provoke engagement from others, whether they are aware of their impact or not, is indeed a form of cowardice. To you, the viewer, who identifies as a good person or has given a similar response, this segment particularly addresses those who believe in trying to be good rather than confidently claiming they are. A pervasive issue I've observed, which mirrors a concept I've dubbed cowardice desperation, reflects a pattern seen in both you and Gwyn. The discussion centers on the act of helping others, often to the point where it becomes detrimental to one's own mental health. You might find yourself repeatedly assisting someone, even in situations where your help may not be necessary or when others are also providing support. This tendency is especially prevalent among those we consider just acquaintances or not particularly close friends. The most common justification for this relentless assistance is the belief in one's inherent goodness and the inability to ignore someone in need. However, I challenge this notion. Recall the earlier encouragement to empathize with Gwyn. Your actions, though seemingly altruistic, are often driven by an underlying fear of the consequences of inaction. These are selfless acts motivated by selfish fears, including the fear of judgment in an era where every action can be scrutinized and potentially lead to social ostracization. Like Gwyn, who feared the unknown consequences of the Age of Dark, you may find yourself helping others out of fear of the unknown, even when such assistance is to your detriment. It's crucial to remember that, just as Gwyn's primary duty was to his people, your primary responsibility is towards your own well-being. Before you can effectively be there for others, you must first ensure that you are mentally and emotionally prepared to offer support. In essence, while the inclination to help is noble, it's paramount to maintain boundaries and prioritize your mental health. The balance between offering support and preserving your well-being is delicate and requires careful consideration, ensuring you remain available and capable of providing meaningful assistance to those who truly depend on you. This isn't to say that you should cease helping people altogether. Your support for close friends, family, and those genuinely in crisis is invaluable. However, it's crucial to exercise caution around those who feign emergencies to exploit your goodwill. Many manipulate the genuine concern of others by threatening self-harm or expressing extreme emotional distress. Cowardly tactics designed to elicit support. Engaging with such manipulation is incredibly difficult to resist in the moment, yet recognizing these actions is the first step in safeguarding your mental health. I want to delve into the topic of suicide with the care it demands, especially since it can be implicated in the most extreme circumstances. Before we continue, it's important that I express that I am not a mental health professional or therapist. Now, it's crucial to approach every mention of suicide with gravity. Through personal experience and learning, I've come to understand that if an individual frequently places the weight of their survival on you, particularly if you share a superficial relationship, their threats may not always lead to actions. This observation isn't to trivialize their feelings, but to acknowledge a pattern. Those truly contemplating suicide often view it as a last resort to relieve unbearable pain, not wishing to impose their despair on others. They usually confide in the closest to them, sparing acquaintances from the burden of their turmoil. Always advocate for professional help, such as therapy or suicide prevention hotlines in these situations. Manipulation using suicidal threats aim to coerce someone into compliance, whether for attention or to meet specific demands. If confronted with this form of manipulation, here's how you can respond. 1. You can show genuine concern for the individual's well-being while firmly maintaining your personal boundaries. 2. You can redirect the responsibility of choosing life or death back to the individual, reinforcing that such decisions are theirs alone. 3. Avoid engaging in debates over the seriousness of their intentions, as validating their feelings does not necessitate agreeing with their manipulative tactics. 4. Understanding that you're not obligated to prove your care or commitment to them based on their terms. Navigating these situations requires a balance of compassion and self-preservation, ensuring you support others without compromising your own mental and emotional well-being. Identifying whether you're jeopardizing your mental health for someone else can often be discerned through your responses to their needs. Are you telling them what they wish to hear, or are you communicating what they truly need to understand? While it's natural to want to provide a listening ear when a friend or partner needs to vent, consistently only offering affirmations that merely echo their desires rather than addressing their needs does not constitute genuine help. True friendship entails a willingness to confront and guide, ensuring you're part of the journey back to a better path, rather than merely affirming every decision they make. This approach goes beyond mere agreement. It involves actively listening and providing the support necessary to navigate through their issues effectively. Reflecting on Gwyn's narrative, his knight's loyalty and support, particularly during challenging times, illustrates the depth of connection and a mutual respect that arises from genuine assistance rather than unconditional acquiescence. Similarly, Gwyn's role as a father, despite his imperfections and his ultimate sacrifice, highlight the complexity and depth of his care and concern. It's crucial to recognize that perfection is not the goal. It's about striving to be present and supportive within your capacity. Acknowledging your limitations is vital. Expressing an inability to assist due to your struggles is not a failure, but a necessary boundary for self-preservation. Prioritizing your well-being is essential, and those who genuinely care for you will understand and respect your need to step back when necessary. If you require a selfless justification, then articulating this boundary communicates to those seeking assistance that they are not alone in their struggles, regardless of outward appearance. This approach can potentially strengthen your relationships, as demonstrating a willingness to set boundaries shows a respect for the individual's social and emotional capacities. When expressed to an acquaintance or someone whom you do not wish to deepen your relationship, using this boundary sets a clear expectation and maintains necessary distance. In all cases, establishing such boundaries underscores the mutual respect and understanding that should be present in all healthy relationships. True friends and family value your efforts and sacrifices, but would never want them to compromise your health and happiness. Considering Gwyn's situation, if he was truly driven by selfish fear of the impending Age of Dark, might he not have considered utilizing one of the other Lord Soul's wielders before sacrificing himself? This query leads us to reflect on our own responses to other struggles. There's a tendency among many to feel a personal obligation to provide help, believing that their support is indispensable, sometimes at the expense of the help's quality or their own well-being. This is the notion I urge you to reconsider. You might find yourself in situations where redirecting someone in need to a different source of support could be more beneficial, yet the inclination to be the sole provider of aid can sometimes overshadow the effectiveness of the assistance provided. Another consequence of this sense of obligation is involving yourself when assistance is already being provided by their friends. This is often rationalized as the inability to walk away when seeing someone in need. In reality, this behavior may be driven by a desire to be seen helping or as someone who helps, coupled with the fear of being perceived as someone who heartlessly walked away, potentially resulting in being socially ostracized by the individual needing help or by the onlookers. This often occurs in party scenes or group settings, where many hesitate to express their placement of trust in those already handling the situation, even if that might be best for the individual in distress. This presents a significant challenge for you, the listener. If any part of this discussion resonates with you, even slightly, I encourage you to confront your apprehensions and prioritize your well-being. Should you encounter situations reminiscent of those discussed, I urge you to communicate openly, about your current incapacity to offer support, ensuring you're not compromising your mental health. This is not only about affirming your boundaries, but also about questioning the validity of the fears that compel you to extend help beyond your means. Remember, it's not your responsibility to be the steadfast pillar for everyone at all times. Concerns that abstaining from offering help might tarnish your reputation as a good person are often unfounded. Those who seek attention through emotional coercion are likely to move on to their next target, revealing their intentions in the process. In instances where you're faced with backlash for setting boundaries, the reaction you receive can illuminate much about the character of the individuals involved. Offering a compassionate yet firm response such as, "I'm sorry you're going through this, and I truly hope things improve for you, but I need to concentrate on my own challenges right now and can't provide the support you're seeking. I hope you understand." If met with anger, only exposes their entitlement. It reveals a belief that their need for comfort is more important than your need to be okay. This should help you discern who genuinely wants, needs, and deserves your time and energy. If you're unsure whether someone is taking advantage or if there's a fear they might be, then offer a response similar to the one previously stated. The manner in which they react will either validate your concerns or offer a new perspective on the situation. This approach allows you to safeguard your well-being while still extending empathy to those around you. I understand that for those listening, and particularly for those to whom this message resonates, my words might seem confrontational. This could be challenging, especially if confrontation is something you find difficult. It's important to recognize that experiencing what I've termed cowardice desperation does not make you a bad person or inherently flawed. My motivations for creating this content stems from my personal journey, one that was fraught with challenges similar to those I've described. The pressures and expectations I placed upon myself led to significant stress and resulted in poor decision-making. This, in turn, spiraled into 2 years lost to the consequences of drug abuse and experiencing 2 heart attacks at the age of 23. Central to the narrative of Dark Souls is the cautionary tale of not succumbing to hollowing. Hollowing signifies more than just a loss of one's physical form. It represents a deterioration of the mind, the extinguishing of the will to persevere, transforming one into merely a shell of their former self. The game conveys a powerful message. Those who continue to push forward, despite the odds, can avoid this fate of hollowing. Gwyn's journey concludes with him as a hollow, a figure shadowed by fear and the weight of his decisions. My own brush with this fate, nearly losing myself to the pressures and choices I made, mirrors his story, but it's a path I wish for none to follow. If you take anything from this video, let it be this plea: don't burn yourself out.